But he's not back.
I'm with you.
If I leave in process, should I leave now?
No.
Are your honors ready to proceed? Because I have
We're always ready to
matter that I have to share.
We can proceed with who we have here.
Okay, that's good. With your honors' permission, there is a message that I have to deliver. I think it's important for me to share this information with this distinguished body as well as the public. It's entitled Message to the International Tribunal to Judge Those Responsible for Ethnic Cleansing and to Bring It to an Immediate Halt. And this message is from Daniel Lickstein, coordinator of the International Liaison Committee of Workers and Peoples, General Secretary of the Workers' Party, France, who was supposed to be impaneled with y'all in this tribunal. It reads as follows. Dear friends, dear sisters and brothers, it is with great regret, for reasons totally beyond my control, I was prevented at the last minute from attending the International Tribunal on Katrina, at which I was given the honor of sitting as a judge. As you know from the start, the International Liaison Committee of Workers and Peoples, of which I am coordinator, and the Workers' Party of France, of which I'm General Secretary, have brought their unconditional support to the proposal to build this tribunal. For the International Liaison Committee of Workers and Peoples, the appalling situation inflicted upon the New Orleans black populations since Hurricane Katrina, it is irrefutable indictment of all of those who decided to leave the New Orleans and the Gulf Coast people stranded, to submit them to wholesale devastation, to repression, and then to an unmitigated operation of ethnic cleansing. This recent persecution of the New Orleans black population is but one more link in the chain. In that long chain of oppression, genocide, and persecutions aimed against the black population, the International Liaison Committee of Workers and Peoples upholds this inalienable right of the oppressed and the exploited to organize independently for their own defense. This is why the ILC recognizes the New Orleans black population's absolute right to judge those responsible for Katrina. It is their absolute right to hold these accountable in government at all levels, federal, state, and local, for all they have joined to varying degrees to forsake the New Orleans black population, to leave them stranded to endure an appalling fate. Likewise, it is the inalienable right of all oppressed and exploited, and particularly the U.S. populations, the black component, to build their own forms of political representation, to build as if they desire their own Reconstruction Party. Who is in a better position than the black population to determine how best to organize independently and to save and defend itself? The International Liaison Committee of Workers and Peoples, because it stands on the ground of the independence of workers' movements, as has supported and will support any step forward towards building an authentic party for the liberation of black people in the United States, a party which would hold and which would represent the interests of the oppressed and the exploited, included those of immigrants from Mexico, the rest of Latin America, and beyond. This party would necessarily converge with the actions underway to build an authentic labor party, a part which itself defends the independent interests of the workers, of all workers in the United States. Likewise, the International Liaison Committee of Workers and People supports all those fighting back against the atrocities and atrocious fate reserved for the population of Africa. From Darfur to Rwanda, the fate reserved by imperialism and for the African people shows that the future of imperialism holds for them one of plunder, of destruction of nations, future so-called ethnic wars that are artificially provoked from abroad. The International Liaison Committee of Workers and People supports the African people's struggle for their sovereignty, for their authentic independence. It supports the popular fight back of South African workers who brought down the regime of apartheid and who are bound to continue their struggle today for South Africa to become, in reality and not just in appearance, an authentic black republic where the majority, the black majority, holds all the elements of power. The International Liaison Committee of Workers and People supports the efforts of the black population in the Caribbean to unite in the anti-imperialist fight back against French, British, and all other forms of colonialism, which claims the right to annex certain Caribbean islands within the framework of what they call the tropical Europe. The International Liaison Committee of Workers and People supports the fight back of the poor populations in Brazil, and in particular the black populations, to break the debt policies, to break with the U.S. government's dictate, and to oppose the sending of French, Brazilians, and other troops to occupy Haiti against the will of its country's people. From South Africa to the United States, to the Caribbean, to Rwanda, the plight afflicted upon black people does not come with any malediction. It deserves from the regime of exploitation and oppression which assails all peoples, all workers, all oppressed. This is why the charges the Katrina survivors have put forward, supported by a worldwide campaign, will judge those responsible. They will not be allowed to go unpunished for the appalling plight imposed upon them 2 years ago. This tribunal is the first step towards the judgment of all peoples and all those responsible for the crimes against the peoples. It is an encouragement for the oppressed and the exploited of the world all over who are organizing to do away with the regime of exploitation founded upon the private ownership of the means of production, for the liberation of workers, youth, and peoples of all continents from the chains of exploitation, war, and oppression. On behalf of the International Liaison Committee of the Workers and Peoples and the Workers of the Party of France, and in my own name, I send you wishes full of success in the Katrina Tribunal proceedings. And it's signed Daniel Glickstein, Coordinator of the International Liaison Committee of Workers and Peoples, General Secretary of the Workers' Party of France. And of course, I will request that this will be entered as part of the record. I will determine exactly where we'll fit that a little bit later. At this time, I'd like to bring on Kerry McLean, who's going to, we're going out a little bit of sequence. We're going to the healthcare sector because of witness availability. Kerry McLean.
Greetings, everyone. My presentation will address the human right to health. The right to health is a fundamental human right enshrined in the Universal Declaration for Human Rights. This right has been affirmed in numerous human rights treaties, including the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. The covenant requires governments to realize the right of their citizens to the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health. Governments have a duty to respect, protect, and fulfill all human rights. The United States has signed the Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights Covenant. According to the law of treaties, as a signatory, the U.S. must refrain from acts which would defeat the object and purpose of the treaty. We hope that after receiving the evidence of our 4 witnesses and the evidence from the assorted reports and articles that are in the packet that I guess you all just received, you'll find that the United States government has violated and continues to violate the human right to health. Do you all have the packet now? Okay. Okay. Well, for anyone that doesn't have the packet, we'll make copies and distribute them later. Okay, so we'll move to our first witness. Roberta, please. Can you please affirm that you'll tell the truth and nothing but the truth? Yes or no? Okay. Where do you live?
Counsel, we need the witness's name spelled.
Oh,
please.
I'm sorry. Can you please state your name for the record? And spell it, please.
LaverdaSuber.
Thank you.
Okay. And can you please tell the tribunal where you live?
Excuse me.
Where you live?
New Orleans.
What has your experience been with the healthcare system in New Orleans?
Before Katrina, it was just okay. And after Katrina, it's just pitiful. It's worse.
You have, I understand that you've been ill. Can you explain what, how you've been treated by some of the doctors in New Orleans prior to Katrina and what's happened afterwards?
Okay, but first let me explain the illness that I have. In January of 2005, before Katrina, I was diagnosed with pneumonia. So I had an x-ray done and some minor work done. And from the x-rays, they saw scarring on my lungs. And so from there, I was told to go see a pulmonary specialist. Excuse me. When I went to see the doctor, he explained to me that I had a lung disease called pulmonary fibrosis. And I never heard of the disease. I never knew what the disease was about. And he failed to really explain to me what it was about. What he did, he gave me inhalers, steroid inhalers, and pamphlets. And I was supposed to educate myself from that. I didn't know the disease was a bad disease until after my 3rd visit to him. Prior to the 3rd visit, I went online and I found out about the disease, and it's a pretty bad disease. And when I asked the doctor about the disease, he explained something to me because I felt like I needed to know. This was my life we're talking about. And he just told me that so cold that the disease was going to take your breath away. You was going to like smother. And it wasn't a good disease. And I was so shaken up from that visit. A 10-minute ride home took me about 45 minutes because I couldn't believe a doctor just blatantly explained something about my life to me that way. A week before Katrina happened, I was supposed to get a second opinion from the doctor who was head of the pulmonary department at LSU Healthcare. We went to see him, and he walked in like God Almighty, looked at my x-ray, turned and told my husband and I that, oh yeah, she got 3 to 5 years to live. You know, without test or whatever. And we sat there stunned. My husband went on to ask a few questions to the guy, to the doctor, and he just like, as cold as he walked in, that's how he walked out. Now, we were supposed to have a biopsy done the Friday Katrina hit. So we didn't get the biopsy done. After Katrina, I went to Houston and stayed with friends. I had my dad with me. My dad is an Alzheimer's patient. And in the emergency room with him, doctors noticed my cough because with the lung disease, you have this cough. You're coughing all the time. They introduced me to a doctor, a pulmonary doctor out there, Dr. Otzi. And I think with all that happened with Katrina, that was one of the best things that could have happened to me. And I have tests done. I had everything I needed to be done out there. He made me feel like a human being. I'm afraid of the doctors in New Orleans right now. I've had bad experience since as early as 3 weeks ago with the doctors here. It's like nobody don't care. They have no compassion. They have this attitude, take it or leave it. You know, it's just horrible. And I'm just right now, we make the pilgrimage to Houston, 6 hours, to go there to get, you know, treatments for myself. And that's about once every 3 months.
And after Katrina, do you feel like you have many choices in choosing doctors to administer the treatment that you need?
No. I have this one doctor that's on my health plan. And he has the attitude, take it or leave it. Sometimes I'll go in there because with the disease again, I can develop pneumonia at any time. Sometimes you know the symptoms of pneumonia. When you breathe, it hurts in your side or in your back. And I experienced that for 3 days and decided to go see this doctor again. When I went to him, I didn't get the stethoscope to, you know, so he can hear congestion or anything. He was in the office 2 minutes, wrote me a prescription for muscle relaxers, and left out.
And this was the doctor in New Orleans.
Yes.
About how much do you spend when you travel to Houston to get treatment? How much do you spend? I believe you stay at a hotel and...
Yeah, we have a 2-night stay in a hotel.
And gas fare?
Excuse me, yeah. Gas is about $100 each way.
And how long does it take you to get to Houston?
6 hours.
And you feel that you need to make that trip because you don't have many choices here in New Orleans?
I make it because, to be honest with you, I can go into a doctor's office feeling bad, and I can leave out of there confused because I don't know what hurts the worst, the physical or the emotions, my emotions. They talk to you and they'll, you know, just like push you to the side like nothing is more important than them right now. And what's going on with you, they don't have time to listen, to examine, or nothing. And my feelings are so hurt all the time, so I kind of tend to not go. You know, I have to wait and get home, call my doctor in Houston. He's so patient, bless him. He's really patient. He'll listen to me and know what's going on with me. And sometimes he'll call in some medications that I need at the time. But nothing can medicate the way you feel when you leave out the doctor's office, because they make you feel like you just a piece of dirt and not even compassionate enough to attend to the problem that's going on. This disease is killing me, and it's like nobody don't care.
And you've stated that you were told by a health professional in New Orleans that the doctors don't care about black women's health.
Oh, yeah, that was before they closed Charity up. And I was seeing a doctor at Charity Hospital, a female black doctor. And we talked, and we had sessions, and that's the one thing about the clinics at Charity Hospital. You know, you'll get in, and you had a doctor that would just invite you to come into, like, group sessions, and we talk about different things. And one of the things that these doctors made us know that the health care that they provide for white women compared to black women is really different. Black women don't get the health care from white doctors like they're supposed to. White doctors said that black women don't ask questions. You know, they just come in and they can't explain what's going on with them. So they tend to just treat them like, you know, like just treat them any kind of way. And this is what they was letting us know. And not only that, people, when I went to Houston to my doctor out there, and he saw all the stupid medicines that they had me on, sterile inhalers, like that was a lifesaver. He told me that he was totally convinced that they didn't care about what was going on with me. They don't care. And he is so adamant about me coming out there. He's willing to pay round-trip tickets, pay for the hotel rooms to be out there, because I'm getting shortchanged here.
And you also said that you'd had a primary care doctor in New Orleans before, but this doctor left after Katrina and didn't return.
Yeah, her name was Dr. Ferrier. And Dr. Ferrier, she was a very attentive woman. But after Katrina, she didn't come back. You know, she just didn't come back. And, you know, like a lot of good doctors, everybody's gone.
And my last question is, you know, you stated that you're afraid to get sick.
Excuse me?
You're afraid to get sick, and you have a fear of...
Oh, yeah. I'm really afraid I'm afraid to get sick in New Orleans. Sometimes I worry, with this disease, what would happen if I had to go to, like, an emergency room? I don't know what to do. The doctors have me so afraid because of their attitudes, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if I'm stating it right. But they don't seem to care. I don't know if it's because they're really overwhelmed with what's going on or what. But it's too many bad experiences. I have a daddy who has Alzheimer's, and he was combatic once. And he punched me in my side. But he don't know what he's doing. I love my daddy, but I knew it was the disease that caused him to do that. I went to Tribunal Hospital because I had a bruise on the outside, and sat in Tribunal from 6:45 until the sun came out the next morning, and was never seen. A nurse in there, it's weird. Everybody went ahead of me. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm sitting there hurting, tired, and it's going on like 12 hours. I go in the emergency room seeing people that went ahead of me. They tell me, go ask the male nurse that was out there. I knock on his door. He wouldn't open the door. So it's me and a few other patients just sat there. And I just totally gave up. I think that was the morning. I just have no more faith in a healthcare system in New Orleans.
And you said that white patients were allowed to go before you, correct?
Oh, yeah. Some of the guys, this was a young nurse, a male nurse, and if people came in, and I hate to sound like this, but it's the truth. When the white people came in, they were like seen automatically. And because I guess I voiced my opinion about that several times. Maybe that was my punishment for not getting in the emergency room. because they were just going in and coming ahead of everybody in there, and we all were feeling bad. But I know I was there for 6:45, and the whole slew of people was behind me. And a lot of those people were seen, and a lot of them wasn't seen because of what we voiced our opinions about. And I called and the Human Resources Department, and I reported it. And they told me that they reprimanded the nurse, and they did see on the x-ray that I had taken that I had a bruised lung, and they still don't understand why I wasn't seen, you know, after 12, 13 hours. So. And that just did it for me. I think I would rather take that 6-hour trip to Houston, where I know I got a doctor waiting there to see me, and that can recommend other doctors for whatever care I might need. I'd rather go out there than to be here. I don't trust them here no more. It's just, I don't trust them. They haven't been fair with me.
Thanks, Roberta. Do the judges have any questions? Yes?
Ms. Ayatoro, and then
You indicated you went to the emergency room at Touro. How do you spell that?
Touro.
Okay. And that was at 6:45 p.m.?
Yes, ma'am.
You said you were dissatisfied with your health care pre-Katrina for the pulmonary illness. What was the difference, or what is the difference in the health care you received pre-Katrina and post-Katrina, or is it the same?
Well, pre-Katrina, the bad experience I had, ma'am, is with the one doctor, the first pulmonary doctor I saw after I was diagnosed with this disease. And I thought he was incompassionate in telling me, sitting down telling me that this is a fatal disease, instead of telling me that I was going to choke and smother, and I'll be fighting for my breath, and such an ugly way about it, you know, and to come back 2 days later and then you apologize because you don't know what came over you or whatever. Something is wrong with this whole picture.
So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, that was prior to Katrina.
Prior.
After Katrina, did you see a worsening of the health care, or was it the same?
Well, none of the majority of the doctors, ma'am, are not back. And under my health care plan, all I have is one doctor. And it's not, nobody else. He never recommended anybody else. He know I have a pulmonary doctor in Houston, and that's where I have to go. I've seen this doctor when I'm having complications, like if I'm breathing or if I feel like I need some antibiotics or some pain pills, I'll go to him. And depending on how things are, I might get seen. And he's just the type of doctor that people experience from time to time that's afraid to touch you.
The doctor you have now here?
The one down here, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, that same doctor is testifying in a trial in St. Francisville right now about the patients that drowned in the Katrina. And he's testifying saying that the patients wouldn't have lived anyways had they been evacuated.
Okay. Do you have a follow-up?
Well, I just wanted to clarify, because I do understand what you're asking, and I just wanted to clarify by asking her another question based on her testimony. But go ahead, continue first.
You can. I have just one other short question, but you can go.
Okay. Roberta, you stated that after Katrina, you felt that you just had fewer choices in choosing a doctor and seeking treatment. For example, before Katrina, you had a primary care physician who was actually very caring.
Right.
And she ended up moving away after Katrina.
Yes.
And so you believe that after Katrina you had fewer choices because the doctors had moved away?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
I do.
Okay. You indicated that before they closed Charity, you were seeing a physician that expressed the concern that they didn't treat black women fairly or equally. When did they close Charity? Was that pre-Katrina or post-Katrina that you received this statement?
That was pre-Katrina.
Thank you very much.
Just one short question. What do you do? What is your profession?
I don't do anything now.
I see. And before?
I worked in healthcare.
I'm sorry?
I worked in healthcare. I was a home health nurse.
I see. Thank you.
Do you have a question?
Oui. Vous décrivez une différence de traitement
You say that there was a difference of treatment
entre les soins que vous avez à la Nouvelle-Orléans
between the health care you received in New Orleans
et ceux que vous avez à Houston.
and the care that you receive in Houston.
Pensez-vous qu'il s'agit de médecins incompétents ou qui a des idées bien précises,
Do you think that it's just a question of incompetence, medical incompetence?
ou alors pensez-vous que c'est tout le système de santé à la Nouvelle-Orléans particulièrement qui est mis en cause?
Or do you think that it's the health system itself which is responsible in New Orleans?
Et ensuite, est-ce qu'il y a d'autres personnes qui ont subi le même traitement que vous à la Nouvelle-Orléans avec ce médecin ou d'autres?
Also, do you know other people who are in the same situation, having received the same kind of treatment in New Orleans by this doctor or other doctors?
Your first question, the answer is, I don't know if it's incompetence, but I think with the shortage of doctors here, doctors can become overwhelmed with patients, and I don't know if it's because they're overwhelmed, but I know this from my own experience. They really think they are gods, and they have the attitude, take it or leave it. Now, I don't know if that have to do with being competent or not, but it's not the same. There's no compassion there. It's the treatments. If I go in there, if I think I have pneumonia or respiratory problems, why would you give me muscle relaxers? So maybe that is incompetent. I don't know, ma'am. And the other question, again, was?
L'autre question, c'était est-ce qu'il y a d'autres personnes qui se plaignent des mêmes choses avec ce médecin ou d'autres
Are there
médecins?
other people who complain about the same sort of treatment from this doctor or other
about
doctors?
the same doctor. Yeah, they do. My mom has Parkinson's. She goes to the same doctor I go to. And one time she might get a fair treatment. The next time she don't. I know other people that complain, because he's the only one under this health plan that half the city is under. And it's just horrible the way we be treated by this doctor. It's horrible. I wish I could call his name.
Et enfin, le système de
And
santé
finally,
de la Nouvelle-Orléans
the New Orleans local health care system.
est sous quelle compétence? La compétence de la municipalité?
Who runs it? It is
compris,
under the authority of
expliquez-nous.
the municipal authorities, or who does it answer to?
Could you repeat that, ma'am?
Yeah. Who runs the New Orleans healthcare system?
Oh, the state.
Merci.
Thank you.
No further questions.
Thanks.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Do you affirm that you'll tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Can you please state your name?
Alice Craft Kearney, ALICE-CRAFT-KERNEY.
And where do you live?
I live in eastern New Orleans.
What is your connection to the healthcare system in New Orleans?
I'm currently the executive director of the Lower Ninth Ward Health Clinic.
Okay, and prior to Katrina, where did you work?
Prior to Katrina, I was employed by the Medical Center of Louisiana, the Charity Hospital campus.
And who were most of Charity's clients?
Most of Charity's clients were the medically indigent African American population.
Okay, and how did you come to stop working at Charity?
Well, post-Katrina, Charity Hospital furloughed most of their employees.
Can you tell me more about that?
Well, it was about November of 2005, and they told us that they were not going to use any of our leave time, but they would actually let all of the very, very skilled, experienced healthcare professionals go. And as a result, many of these healthcare professionals left this community as well as the state. They found employment in other areas, and they have decided not to return. New Orleans was already an underserved community for health care. So post-Katrina, it just worsened the condition.
So you said that you're now working for a legal clinic? You're the director?
I'm the director of the Lower Ninth Ward Health Clinic.
And tell me the demographics of the people that visit you at the clinic.
Most of the folk that come to the Lower Ninth Ward Health Clinic are African American. They are medically indigent, they are uninsured. We do get some folks that are migrating from the adjacent parish, which is St. Bernard, and they are mostly white, but we do get some African Americans from some of the further reaches of St. Bernard Parish.
And what are some of the healthcare issues or health issues that you see in your patients that are related to Katrina?
Okay, what happened, many of the patients were disconnected from their primary health care providers because they had left the city. And many of the patients that we had also were patients of the Charity Hospital system, which cared for the medically indigent. To understand a little bit of the history of healthcare here in New Orleans, you have to understand that there was a two-tiered system, one for those that were insured and one for those that were not insured. Money was allocated to state hospitals to take care of the poor, uninsured people, and Charity Hospital was the main place where they received their care. When Charity Hospital closed post-Katrina, many of these folks were left without any type of health care.
How many hospitals are back up after Katrina?
There are only 2 hospitals to my knowledge. That is 3. Two-Row Infirmary, Tulane University Hospital, as well as Children's Hospital. However, there are no hospitals past Canal Street to serve the citizens of New Orleans. So the New Orleans East area, the Lower Ninth Ward, 7th Ward, these areas do not have a hospital that they can go to.
Okay, and after Charity closed, some people had to travel very far to get health care?
With Charity closing, you not only had primary care there, you also had specialists. I had an experience with 2 African American women who were pregnant post-Katrina. This was last year. I asked them if they were receiving prenatal care, and they said no, because Charity Hospital had not opened its OBGYN clinic. As a result, these young ladies were unable to access care in their community. The closest hospital that was run by Charity, the Charity Hospital system, was a hospital called Leonard Chaubert, located in Houma, Louisiana, about 70 miles from the city. This presented a problem not unique to other residents, because if you you have a modest income and you have to travel 70 miles to get your treatment, you probably won't do it because it's too expensive.
Okay, I want to go back to a question I asked you previously about some of the healthcare issues that you see in your patients that are connected to Katrina, such as, I think you've mentioned depression and...
Well, I'm going to start with the physical problems.
Okay.
Many of the chronic illnesses that can be controlled with medication, monitoring of lab work, and that type of thing was not happening here in New Orleans because people were not connected to their doctors. We have a large population of African Americans with diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular diseases, respiratory diseases, and because folks were not being monitored, their conditions worsened. And what we saw was what we considered train wrecks. These were people who chronic illnesses became so severe that they presented to the emergency rooms to be seen. We also came in contact with really about 95% of our clients that come through the doors at the clinic are experiencing some type of mental health problem, whether it be depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, or anxiety.
Also, has there been an increase in morbidity and mortality?
There's been a significant increase in morbidity and mortality in the New Orleans area. As a matter of fact, our head person over the city health department, Dr. Kevin Stevens, has done some research, and he has basically determined that the death rate and morbidity rate have really increased post-Katrina. And he has been talking to the epidemiologist for the state of Louisiana, because they have had disagreements about it, because it appears as though the state is minimizing the number of deaths and increased morbidity related to Katrina.
Has the suicide rate increased?
It certainly has.
Regarding the mental health issues, have your patients told you that living in the trailers has affected their mental health?
Yes, they have. We've come in contact with quite a few people who have actually told us their stories. There was one woman who lived in a trailer with her family. She was a young African American female, and her minister shared this. He didn't tell us who she was, but it was a young African-American female who called him in the middle of the night and said that she felt like slitting her wrist, that she wanted to give up. And he had to rush over to her home to console her, and later tried to get her some connection so that she could seek the mental health services that she so desperately needed, because she had 2 small children that were in the trailer with her, and he was very concerned about their well-being also. There's also been self-reports from some of the patients coming through the clinic that they are experiencing the symptoms. If you ask them outright if they're depressed, if they're sad, many times they'll put up a very brave front to say, no, I'm not experiencing problems. But once you start questioning them about appetite, concentration, enjoyment of things that you used to do, your mood, these types of things, then we find out that these people basically are going through some type of clinical depression.
Also, is it true that the police have been imprisoning the mentally ill?
Well, I can give you the case of a man who lived in the Lower Ninth Ward community. Many people were very familiar with him. His name was Terry Burton. He was mentally ill, and apparently he was off of his meds, and he apparently exhibited some behaviors that the National Guard considered dangerous, and Terry was killed.
Also, children have been having mental health issues after Katrina. Can you talk a little bit about that? And the criminalization?
Well, with the children have so many challenges facing them every day. They've had so many losses. They've lost their belongings, they've lost their homes. In some cases, they've lost their parents or grandparents or siblings. They've lost their schools, they've lost their culture, they've been relocated. They've moved from place to place. And what happens is they start to act out, which is what children do when they're traumatized. But they have been criminalized in the media for acting out, and they show the worst possible things on television to give people the idea that our children are criminals, which they aren't. And they have talked and said that they have a hard time. They have a hard time, and what we're seeing is that the police is called to the schools because the children have had some type of outburst or some type of emotional crisis, and they have to be removed from the school and treated. However, the state still does not have enough inpatient mental health beds to